There were many causes of the American Revolution. Today, I will be talking about 4 of the major causes. The Boston Tea Party was a political and mercantile protest by the Sons of Liberty in Boston on December 16, 1773, which allowed the British East India Company to sell tea from China and American colonies without paying taxes apart from those imposed by the township. Thinly disguised as Mohawks, they boarded 3 ships in Boston Harbor and destroyed more than 92,000 pounds of British tea by dumping it into the harbor. To make the point that they were rebels rather than vandals, they avoided harming any of the crew or damaging the ships themselves, and the next day even replaced a padlock that had been broken. The Sons of Liberty, a radical group, decided to confront the British head-on. The Sons of Liberty were a grassroots group of instigators and provocateurs in a colonial America who used an extreme form of civil disobedience, threats, and in some cases, actual violence to intimidate loyalists and outrage the British government. George Hughes was among the men who secretly gathered at the Boston dock a night before to plan the event. Hughes was a struggling merchant who had grown despised of the British after they stopped him on the street and refused to pay him for his shoes. To recoup some of the massive debt left over from the war with France, Parliament passed laws such as the Stamp Act, which for the first time taxed a wide range of transactions in the colonies. Sheets of penny revenue stamps printed by Britain for the American colonies after the Stamp Act of 1765. The colonists didn't see it that way. They resented not only having to buy goods from the British, but pay tax on them as well. The tax never got collected because there were riots all over the place. Ultimately, Benjamin Franklin convinced the British to rescind it, but that only made things worse. That made the Americans think that they could push back against anything the British wanted. An American colonist reads with concern the royal proclamation of a tax on tea in colonies as a British soldier stands nearby with a rifle and bayonet. The tax on tea was one of the clauses of the Townshend Acts. The Townshend Acts were a series of measures passed by the British Parliament in 1767 that taxed goods imported to the American colonies, but American colonists who had no representation in Parliament saw the act. The help of Sons of Liberty, a secret society of American business leaders who coined the phrase taxation without representation, 24 towns in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island agreed to boycott British goods in January 1768. All of the Townshend Acts, except for the tax on tea, were repealed in April 1770. No taxation without representation. No taxation without representation. Simmering tensions between the British occupiers and Boston residents boiled over one late afternoon when a disagreement between an apprentice wigmaker and a British soldier led to a crowd of 200 colonists surrounding 7 British troops. When the Americans began taunting the British and throwing things at them, the soldiers apparently lost their cool and began firing into the crowd. As the smoke cleared, 3 men, including an African-American sailor named Crispus Attucks, were dead, and 2 others were mortally wounded. The massacre became a useful propaganda tool for the colonists, especially after Paul Revere distributed an engraving that misleadingly depicted the British as the aggressors. Boom, boom, boom. Hi guys, so a little blooper behind the scenes of what's going on here. Hi y'all. Hey mates, this is Genuine Washington with the American crew crossing the Delaware River with a big thing of ice that you already know. On the back of it, you could see that they're all horses and they were terrified. And when I mean terrified, I mean terrified. And how is George Washington just standing properly without even falling out the boat?
This is why we celebrate July 4th.
I don't know.
Facts, kids. See ya. Don't want to be ya.
Oh, and P.S. I better get like 100 plus because like I worked my butt off for this, and trust me, I have no editing skills, and you could say my editing skills was popping, okay? Anyways, hope you guys enjoy. Toodaloo, chip chip cheerio mates. Bye.